Friday before fall break. I'm sure you are all ready for that much needed break as well. My name is Missy March, and I'm the supervisor of school counseling, advisement, and crisis response. And it's so nice to see so many familiar faces. So thanks for being with us today. I don't anticipate that we'll be here the full 2 hours, but please engage, ask questions, and we'll go through this together. So the first thing that I would just love to hear from you, and you're welcome to do it as a Mentimeter, which I have in here, or just put it in the chat or unmute and shout it out if you want. What comes to your mind when you think about school counseling? So you can participate in the Mentimeter, or if you just want to put it in the chat or shout it out, we'll do it that way, make it a little more informal this morning. Support for kids, support for emotional needs, loving it, mediation, support. I love seeing that word come up, making a difference for children's lives. Support, helping, loving the teenagers, helping kids and families. All such positive experiences. A soft place to land and learn. Gosh, I love how you said that, Mandy. Supporting students and teachers. Brad, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, the support for teachers as well as for students. Thanks for reminding us of that. Support, listen, and helpers, strategies, and coping skills. Melissa, thanks for mentioning that too. Advocating. Adult thing. I'm glad that you guys all have such positive relationships with your school counselors in the building, or those of you who are school counselors that you're having good experiences so far. So that's great. Just a reminder, we used to be really guidance counselors, that kind of dreaded G word, right? And we were very reactive and only focused on those students who really needed mental health and support. And think about the counselor who's in the office with a cup of coffee, really just focusing on one student at a time. And that's really not the case anymore. We are very proactive with our work. We are school counselors who are data driven, really looking at your school data, looking at our district data, and finding ways to serve all of the students in your building. So really making sure that we are very proactive, serving all students through classroom lessons, and making sure that the work that we're doing is outcome data, but it's measured, right? It's not because it feels good, and hopefully it does feel good, but we don't do it just because, oh, I think that this will feel good. We do it because it's going to have an impact on that school data and on that achievement data. So really making sure that that's what your school counselors are doing in the building. This, of course, looks very familiar to that RTI pyramid because we do work on all 3 tiers, right? We're serving on tier 1 all students, and we should be serving them in our academic domain, in a college and career domain, and also in a social and emotional domain. And that's true for pre-K through 12. So even our babies are receiving college and career advisement and classroom lessons. So really making sure that our counselors are hitting all 3 of those domains on a tier 1 level. And that is for every single student. And then making sure that in that tier 2, right, these are going to be our small groups, maybe some of our consultation that we're doing with families as well as with teachers. This is where we're going to be doing a smaller percentage of our work with less students. And then we go up, of course, to tier 3, and this is where we're going to be doing even less work with fewer students and possibly making some referrals to outside resources where we work with our partners in community and our coalition of outside providers. But really thinking about it as that full pyramid where we serve all students from the base up. We do focus on the Ask a National model. The national model changed last year. So those of you who are familiar with our national model, it got a little bit of a reboot, but we still have our 4 systems. And what's really interesting is PEKES directly aligns with our national model, which is beautiful in the way that you assess school counselors. So we're making sure that our school counselors are doing these things with the PEKES evaluation system. So first and foremost, we're making sure that they are assessing, we're making sure that they are delivering, we're making sure that they are defining, and we're making sure that they are managing. And you'll see these terms coming up time and time again throughout the PEKES evaluation system as well, but it aligns directly with our national model. So it's really nice how they blend beautifully together. Just to share with you the counselor rubric and of course the PEKES evaluation system, there are 5 standards, just as with the teachers TEKS evaluation system. And then we have 2 parts for each one of those standards. And then I have some examples that are provided just because, of course, counselors are a little bit different than evaluating teachers or leaders or maybe some other personnel in the building as well. The level 3 is, of course, our expected level of performance. If at any time you feel like a counselor might be in danger of not achieving a level 3, I would really love to work with you and to be able to work with a counselor during the school year to see if we can partner with them to help them to grow and to get them to that level 3. We have a variety of resources and support in my office. So as an administrator, I would love to partner with you to see what we can do to help our counselors to grow in those areas and ensure that they are all achieving a level 3. If you ever have any concerns about this, please feel free to reach out to me directly. If a counselor does not reach a level 3 in any of the PEKES standards, we do have some remedial work for them, including various trainings and partners and mentoring that we can do to help them for the subsequent year. So we'll jump right into it. Of course, I'm not going to read all of this to you, but Performance Standard 1 is all about professional knowledge. So really making sure that our school counselors are demonstrating a good understanding of the comprehensive model of school counseling and that they are understanding and demonstrating a level of excellency by showing that they have experience in those 3 domains that I mentioned earlier. So academic achievement, college and career development, and social and emotional growth. So those are our 3 areas. Additionally, the school counselor has to have, of course, data-driven goals. So it is very, very important that a counselor have their annual administrative conference. This is actually due right after the fall break. Our counselors are aware of this, and it's nothing that you as an administrator have to do. The burden is on the counselor to schedule this meeting and to sit down and share their goals with you. These should be data-driven goals, as I mentioned, and they should be outcome-based, so really focused on attendance, discipline, and achievement. for your students. So those are the two pieces. If a counselor does not have an annual administrative conference, the highest rating that they can get on this professional standard is a level 2. So it's critical to note that without that annual agreement, they can only get a 2 for this standard. Here are just some of the examples for a level 3 counselor, making sure that they are meeting and being proficient in the areas. Again, I'm not going to read all of these to you. I will make the PowerPoint available. So if you ever need to refer back to these when you're doing the summative evaluation, you can. Just to highlight a few outside of that annual conference, making sure that they keep up with their weekly and their annual calendars. Again, making sure that they identify standards. Counselors have standards, just like teachers have standards, and making sure that they have thoroughly developed lesson plans as well. Again, those things are no different from being a teacher. So making sure that those are all very thorough. For our level 4 counselors, again, I won't read all of these to you, but I want to highlight just a few, making sure that they're really going above and beyond. So how are they leading either in your building, on a state level, or on a national level, right? Are they delivering professional development for your teachers, for your staff, in your school building? Are they presenting on a state or national level? Maybe they're contributing to professional literature as well. So really just thinking about how are they going above and beyond in showing their professional knowledge. So as you can see, not all of our counselors will be a 4, and I make it very clear to them that that's okay. The expectation is, again, having that level 3. Any questions about standard 1? Great. Here's just an example of that annual administrative conference. Again, it focuses on outcome goals, use of time, and professional development. All of these forms are available on the district's one team under human resources. There's a PKES folder, and it's available there for administrators as well as for school counselors. And I'm just wondering, again, we don't have to use the Mentimeter. We can be very informal this morning, but have you met with your counselors? Administrators, have you got, oh, I see some thumbs up. I love that. Others, yes, no? Have we met with our school counselors? Thumbs up, yay! I love that, yes. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Well, since it's the Friday before they're essentially due, I'm hoping that most of them have done it, although some of them have asked for an extension. So good, I'm so glad that you're aware of what that is, so love it. Oh, and Missy Shackelford says, yes, daily. Dr. Nelson, officially after the break. I love it. Love it. Great, great, great. You guys are amazing. All right, moving along right into performance standard 2. Of course, teamwork, collaboration, and relationships. That ties to the ASCA domains of defining and delivering. And for all school personnel, that's so critical, but especially in the world of school counseling, we really can't exist without teamwork and collaboration. So focusing on providing a safe and positive learning environment for all students, right? Really emphasizing that all student piece. And then additionally, creating a student-centered environment and focusing on the post-secondary planning and soft skills. And again, that is for pre-K all the way through 12th grade. Again, just a couple of the things that you might see for a level 3 counselor. We love to see all students engaged in some kind of college and career readiness activities. For middle and high school, that might be bridge law. For our elementary school, that might be some kind of activity where they're working on career readiness. Some of our counselors get so creative with these, and it is really fun to see what they come up with in a career fair. So I love seeing those, really focusing on those soft skills as well. And really focusing also on closing achievement gaps. So this is a great way where they can focus on achievement gaps and closing those. Our level 4 counselors, again, going above and beyond. So looking to see if they are doing things like participating in community work. Are they partnering with any of your community partners and representatives to work on having a change? Are they going outside and maybe doing some college fairs and readiness? Are they advocating for change that needs to happen in your building beyond just what they would do as a regular school counselor? So really taking a look at this and seeing if they are going above and beyond. Performance standard 3 is accountability. So we are really looking to see if they are assessing and managing. So with performance standard 3, really looking to see if they are using appropriate strategies for instruction. Is it developmentally appropriate for all of our students when they're working with the students? And are they also using a variety of interventions and programs, right? And this is both for their classroom lessons as well as their group and their individual. Additionally, if the school counselor is using data, right? So this is really where the data piece comes in. But are they using data to evaluate the effectiveness of their program, right? Again, it doesn't just feel good, but are we really assessing what we're doing and why we're doing it? So really thinking about that. So level 3 and level 4 counselors turn in a results report to the Office of School Counseling every year. Without that results report, the highest score that a counselor can get in Performance Standard 3 is a level 2. You should also get a copy of the results report, and it should be a way for you to see some of the work that they've been doing throughout the year. Hopefully you're seeing lots of the work that they're doing throughout the year, but it should be one way to highlight one of the programs that they've been doing. Here are some of the things that you would see from a level 3 counselor. Of course, examining student data, examining school data, and really planning out their counseling instructions and interventions, really making sure that they know participation data, mindset and behavior data, and outcome data. Hopefully they can communicate this to other members of your staff. We really do expect for them to be data experts in your building. I know how challenging that can be for some people on staff. And then making sure that they use that data to be good decision makers. And again, we go over data collection with them just so that you're aware we have multiple data trainings throughout the year. You are welcome to have your counselors attend these. And if you're ever interested in attending or having other members of your staff attend as well, they are open and anybody is welcome. Our level 4 counselors, as I mentioned, are of course going above and beyond. They are making sure that their program goals and that their interventions are fully aligned with the student data and hopefully with your school data or your school improvement plans. They are really demonstrating their expertise in data collection and data analysis. So really showing that they are an expert in this area and maybe helping some of your other CCCs dig into the data and really understand what they're looking at as well, and look for some of those outliers and really looking at their data to identify some of the work that they're going to do as well. Any questions about Standard 3? Awesome. We'll just move right along. Performance Standard 4 is about problem solving and resource management. School counselors promote student learning. And this one always gets a little bit tricky because we ideally want school counselors to be spending 80% of their time doing school counseling instruction, appraisal and advisement, and counseling, and then indirect services. Only 20% of their time should be spent in program planning and school support, right? So this gets a little tricky, especially with all of those other duties as assigned. We'll talk about that in a second, though. And then additionally, the school counselor, of course, is going to coordinate appraisal and advisement, a lot of those individual and small group activities. So when we're talking about problem solving resource management, the level 3 counselor is just going to make sure that they are doing appropriate lessons for classroom, small group, and individual, still making sure that those are linked to those 3 domains that we talked about earlier, that they have appropriate standards, appropriate lesson plans, everything that a counselor should have, just like what you would expect from your teachers as well. However, we need to make sure that they are keeping an appropriate use of time. At any point, you should be able to ask your counselor how they're spending their time, and they should be able to communicate this with you. You should never ask a counselor, hey, what have you been doing? Or how many students have you seen? Or what does your time look like? And they're like, I don't know, right? They should be able to articulate their time and their calendars with you. And we've shared this with them, so it's never a problem for them to be able to articulate their time. We do have a time log that they can use, or they can use their own form as well. So lots of ways that they can do that. We also do expect them to follow the local school and district crisis plan, and that has to do with problem solving and resource management as well. Now, when we're breaking down the use of time, as I mentioned, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So much of their time, instruction, appraisal and advisement, counseling, referrals and consultation, that's supposed to take up 80% of their time. Really, when they're eyeball to eyeball with students, or when they're doing those things on behalf of students, right? So if I'm sitting in a 504 meeting and I am actively engaged with a team to find solutions on behalf of a student, that's great. That can go in the 80% category, right? However, if I am just setting up a meeting and doing clerical work, that, however, does not count as the 80%. That goes to the 20% of school support. So it really depends on what the counselor is doing. Now, we all work in a school. We all have to do school support. So there's lots of ways that counselors can hopefully use their school support to still connect with students. I was a high school counselor for many, many years. And one of the ways that I had to do school support was I had lunch duty, right? We all have different duties that we have to have. So what I used to do is take a cart down to the lunchroom, and students could come and see me and ask me questions about college and career readiness, or make appointments to see the counselors, or do things like that. So sometimes you just have to be creative with your school support to figure out how you're still going to connect with students. So with those school support time, I would encourage you as administrators and counselors to really sit down with your team and figure out how can we try to figure out how are we going to get it to 80%, 20%, and even with that 20%, is there a way that we could make it a way where we're still connecting with students and serving students? So if you have any questions about this or need any help with this, I'm always here to try to brainstorm with you. So again, just to the chat, or if you want to shout it out, we don't have to use the Mentimeter again. What are some barriers for you and your school that might keep you from reaching that 80-20, especially in this year, which seems to be crazier than normal? Oh, Sherry, you're so right. Contact tracing. Oh, you even got some thumbs up on that. I'm with you. I'm on a contact tracing team myself. Angela agrees with you too. Yep, the resetting for school structure. Well, I'd even say like relearning school, right? Those students trying to relearn school, our teachers trying to relearn school. I think even for some of them, our parents and families trying to relearn school. Oh yeah, she said absolutely. Okay, good. That's what I've seen when I've been going out there. Covering classes. So, right, even though they're with kids, right, they're not really doing their role. Missy, I so agree with you. We've been having a lot of conversations with counselors about how when you're covering classes or when you're stepping in to cover a class, how could we use that time to maybe do some SEL support or do circle time or connect with kids in a different way. So yeah, absolutely. Social emotional impact is huge. Karen, you're so right. I love the little minion. School rules? Do we have school rules right now? Sort of sometimes, right? Testing. Ruth, you're so right. Does everybody else feel like we're over tested all the time? Yeah. So, right, those are some of the barriers that absolutely, oh, Missy's agreeing, yes, testing, that keep us from getting to that 80-20, right? And remember, 80-20 is a goal. So does it mean that we're always going to get there? No. Does it mean that maybe this year we're going to get there? No. But we can look at maybe what our data was last year, and maybe we either stay the same or get a little bit closer, or maybe we goal to get a little bit closer next year, right? So again, these are just conversations to have. It doesn't mean that we have to be there. It means that it's something that we're working towards, right? We understand that it is crazy in your world right now. We absolutely do. And so this might be one of those things that just isn't going to happen this year, right? So I get that. Like, I get your world. It's not always realistic, right? So we have like what we're aiming for, and then we have like what really is. So just understand that like some of those school support things, we just try to figure out how can we still connect with kids, because that is ultimately what's most important, is connecting with kids. And again, I'm always here to help if you have questions about that. Randy, that is such a great question. So one of the questions is, do you have to have the 80-20 as part of your RAMP process? I love that question. So some of your counselors or some of your schools might be applying for RAMP. They do ask you about your time. However, if you are not at 80-20, there's a place where you can talk about why you're not at 80-20. So that's something that we can work on too. Great question. All right, standard 4, moving right along. Problem solving resource management for level 4. Again, that results report that you turn in showing that positive impact that you're making, right? So that's what a level 4 counselor is doing, really showing that outcome data. Making sure, of course, that we align with the Ask the National model and sharing your innovative resources, right? Maybe you're sharing it best practices. Maybe you're just sharing with your community. Do you have a newsletter, right? Are you sharing with your teachers and with your families about all the great things that you're doing? So I think that's one of the ways where counselors sometimes need to do more, is just promoting all the beautiful work that they're doing in their building. All right, last performance standard. It is communication and professionalism. So again, this aligns with the ASCA standards of define, deliver, and management. So of course, we have to align to the professional ethical standards. the mission and vision and the beliefs of the school counseling program. And school counselors actually have their own code of ethics in addition to all of the Cobb County Code of Ethics and Standards. Additionally, it is critical that we communicate effectively with students, with parents, with families, and of course, with school personnel. For a level 3 counselor, the couple of things that I just want to highlight for you is maintaining confidentiality, right? Everything that pertains to FERPA, making sure that we follow ethical and legal standards, and participating in professional development. So if you ever have an ethical or legal situation, you are always welcome to reach out to me. I do advise your counselors all the time to consult, right? We never want to make these decisions in isolation. And of course, with our level 4 counselors, just showing that highest degree of professionalism. And if you have any issues as it relates to your counselors with this, please let me know so that we can have a conversation. Here's your administrative timeline by October the 5th, right? Just making sure that we have that annual conference, that annual administrative conference done, which it looked like so many of you were already done. I love that so much. During the school year, you can do an optional observation. I'm going to show you that form in just a second. And then, of course, you'll have your summative evaluation at the end of the year, and your counselor should be showing you their results reports at that time. There is an observation form that is also available on the One Team Human Resources page under PKES. I do want to point out you can observe a classroom lesson, a parent meeting, staff development, a workshop. The only thing that we ask is that you please do not observe an individual counseling session or a group session, and that's just to protect confidentiality. Just a few little helpful hints and tips, tricks that I've noticed. I actually do audit all of the PKES scores each year when we actually have PKES scores to audit. And so these are just some of the things that I have noticed over the past couple of years. If you will please just make sure that your PKES scores are from an overall performance and not just from that observation. So make sure that you are really looking at the totality of the counselor's performance. School counselors who work in a team, this is really most of the schools who have multiple numbers, but especially middle schools and high schools, should not all have the same scores. So please make sure that you are scoring them as individuals and their individual work instead of collectively as a team. And then, of course, it is important that you have that pre-conference at the beginning of the year. Most of the counselors should not receive a 4 in every category. It's a little concerning to me, honestly, if a counselor does have a 4 in every category, because to go above and beyond, they would probably not ever be in your building. They would be out doing national things or state things all the time. And then how are they serving your students? So they could have 4s in multiple categories, but it's just something to really think about and really make sure that you are scoring each standard based on the rubric. And just like teachers, school counselors can definitely provide documentation for their evaluation, and I talk to them about that all the time. So please don't hesitate to ask them for documentation for the difference between a 3 and a 4. And as I mentioned, anything less than a 3, our office will support them by assigning a mentor, asking them to attend additional workshops, or anything like that. This year, for their professional learning goals, I have worked with the Office of Human Resources, and all of your counselors have the same professional learning goal. It's been provided to them in writing, so they each know exactly what that is, and they're also working in their vertical teams on their professional learning goal. And again, all of the forms are found on the One Team location under Human Resources. What kinds of questions do you all have for me?